During a celebratory hunt with her husband and client, a lawyer accidentally shoots a local, setting off a chain of tragic events. In a forest in Transylvania, Aaron prepares to attack a deer with his bow and arrow. However, a veteran named Lori suddenly fires, scaring the animal away. As Aaron chases after the target, Lori interrupts him, teasing him to change his hunting style so he can succeed. However, the hunter brushes him off and runs after the deer. In Budapest, lawyer Márta and her husband are off to the forest for a celebratory hunt after her recent courtroom win. While driving, the attorney contacts her caretaker, Yuli, and tasks her to throw the soup in the toilet bowl. After Márta hangs up, she teases her spouse, László, who was napping earlier, for his drooling. Then, she playfully leans in to kiss him, causing the car to swerve slightly. Following this, the lawyer contacts Christoph, threatening that if he doesn't transfer the money soon, she'll have his face all over the newspapers. After the call, the man immediately approaches Churgoy, an influential businessman, informing him about their situation. Days ago, Churgoy invited Márta, his rival's lawyer, into his home. He attempted to bribe her to ensure that his enemy was found guilty by the second instance court. Unbeknownst to him, the attorney recorded their conversation with her pen. Presently, Márta threatens to release the recording to the public in exchange for cash. To avoid getting in trouble, Christoph advises Churgoy to buy time as they devise a plan. Meanwhile, László, who is against his wife's decision, questions her for blackmailing Churgoy instead of accepting his business offer that can benefit their firm. However, Márta dismisses this, suggesting that it's her responsibility to protect her client, causing her husband to doubt her excessive dedication. Afterward, the lawyer receives a call from her client, István, and advises him to meet the hunting guide while waiting for their arrival. After he hangs up, the businessman watches himself on TV, revealing that he and Márta have won the case regarding the tragic building demolition that resulted in the loss of 2 lives. However, despite the verdict, the claimant has appealed the court's decision, leading to a scheduled retrial. Meanwhile, Márta finally receives the money from Churgoy. While she's happy to receive the large amount, her husband is highly disappointed. In the forest, Lori spots his ex-girlfriend Alina walking alone. Despite knowing she's seeing someone new, he still hopes she'll give him another chance. However, annoyed, she declines and walks in another direction. Upon reaching the hut, she meets Aaron, her boyfriend, who reveals that he couldn't catch the deer for the village wedding because Lori kept disrupting him. He promises to hunt again that afternoon, but she only advises him to be careful because 3 hunters from Budapest will arrive. Suddenly, Alina confesses that Lori had bothered her earlier and tried to get back with her. Hearing this, Aaron thinks of beating him up with the other locals' help. Meanwhile, István meets Lori, who lends him a hunting weapon. The couple soon arrives and receives their equipment. Following this, the guide leaves them on their own to hunt. Unbeknownst to Márta, a man named András is waiting near her flat. After Yuli leaves, he enters the lawyer's house with a safe breaker to help him steal the recording in her safe box. As the trio ventures into the woods, István praises his attorney for not letting him get imprisoned. However, László reacts negatively, implying that it doesn't change the truth even if he has a good lawyer. In response, the client sarcastically recommends he fight for human rights in India because of his strong sense of justice. Before László can respond, István suddenly grabs his weapon to shoot the deer behind him. He then rushes to check his target, leaving the couple behind. Unbeknownst to them, Lori is watching nearby. When her husband questions why they are hunting, Márta reminds him that they're celebrating, leading them to engage in a physical moment. Meanwhile, András watches the recording and reports to István that Churgoy had bribed Márta to lose their second instance. Hearing this, the businessman realizes that his lawyer has betrayed him. He then asks his assistant to meet him at the guest house that evening. After hanging up, István finds the deer he shot lying lifeless on the ground. While hunting on the other side of the forest, László hears a sound behind the bushes, prompting Márta to shoot. The lawyer smiles upon finding blood on the ground, assuming she shot an animal with her weapon. However, to her shock, she discovers she hit a local named Viorel. When Márta starts panicking, László tries to ease her, explaining that it was an accident. When he suggests telling the guide so they can reach the police, she panics even more, knowing she'll be in jail because their hunt is unauthorized. When László tries to contact István through the radio, she threatens him with her weapon, leading him to surrender the device to his wife. Márta then speaks with her client, stating that she's canceling the hunt because of her ulcer. When the businessman asks what they caught, she lies, saying that László almost hit a fox. Meanwhile, Alina, who takes care of Viorel, realizes he's missing, so she heads to the village to visit her uncle Márta, who's preparing the wedding venue. When she asks if he's seen Viorel, her relative thinks that the man fell asleep somewhere after getting intoxicated. After covering the lifeless body with leaves, the couple returns to the mountain where they meet István, who joins them in returning to the guest house. On their way down, they encounter Lori with a local's body on the back of his truck. He boldly claims that the couple is responsible for the man's demise. Seeing this, a guilty Márta rushes to the car, but István runs after her, promising to help. When Lori sells the bullet for 50,000 euros, the businessman agrees to pay for it. The local then swears to dispose of the body once his money arrives. While driving, István contacts András, telling him the situation has changed. He orders him to bring him 50,000 euros when they meet. Arriving at the guest house, Márta apologizes to her husband for threatening him earlier, admitting she was scared. However, László points out that she always behaves like that. Suddenly, Márta proposes blaming Lori for shooting the local and getting István's help as a witness. Hearing this, László refuses, but the lawyer points out that it'll work because their hunting guide owned the weapon, organized the hunt, and blackmailed them. While wearing his yellow sweater, he asserts that he's against Márta's plan of putting an innocent man's life in danger just to save herself. Disappointed, Márta attempts to attack him, but he only stops her. While he agrees to stick to their plan to pay Lori for the bullet, he promises not to assist her again if she gets in trouble. Upon returning home, the guide checks the deer given to him by István as a gift for the village wedding. Unbeknownst to him, Aaron watches him nearby, waiting for him to leave. When Lori drives off, Aaron enters the house to steal a deer, but to his surprise, he discovers Viorel's body, suspecting that Lori ended his life. Suddenly, the hunter hears Lori returning, so he runs. When the veteran catches him, Aaron threatens him, saying more locals will visit if he keeps bothering Alina. In response, the man scares him away with his weapon. Following this, Lori enters his house to get his phone. However, when he notices the unlocked door, he quickly realizes that Aaron saw Viorel's body. Knowing that he'll get in trouble, he runs after the man, slashing and strangling him to his demise. After showering, Márta encounters István inside their room. While her husband waits in the dining area, they kiss, revealing their secret lovers. He then reassures her that András will arrive with Lori's money by midnight. That evening, the guide heads to the wedding venue in the village to offer the deer, presenting it as a gift from the city hunter. In the guest house, the trio eats dinner and Alina serves them wine. Suddenly, Márta and the locals arrive to thank István for his gift. While everyone celebrates, László goes outside and meets a boy, asking him if he knows the path to Wonder Castle, a cave in the woods he visited when he was young. The boy confirms and reminds him of the directions to the area for 10 euros. While the locals are busy getting dazed, two of them leave to find Aaron, who turns out to be the boy's brother. Meanwhile, László informs his wife that he'll just go for a walk. Hearing this, István follows him as he leaves, warning him not to do anything stupid. While László's away, the businessman brings Márta inside a barn, where they engage in a physical moment while she's bound. However, after they're done, István keeps the lawyer tied up. He then accuses her of collaborating with Turgoy behind his back, showing that he has a copy of the recording. In response, Márta defends that she didn't accept Turgoy's offer and only recorded their conversation as evidence. She points out that she'll be representing him until the end of the case, as what they signed in their contract. When István asks her why she didn't tell him immediately, the lawyer explains that it was best if he didn't know about it. However, the client doubts her true intentions and threatens to expose her for shooting a local if she doesn't represent him in the second instance court. After István unties her, Márta feels traumatized, fearing that she might go to prison if her secret's revealed. Meanwhile, the locals allow Berkus to sniff Aaron's clothes to track him down, and they soon find his lifeless body in the woods. After leaving the barn, Márta thinks of a way to solve her situation. She asks Alina to take her to Lori's house, only to discover that the man they're looking for is already lifeless. Alina starts crying, thinking that Aaron was responsible for it because of her complaint. She explains to Márta that she dated Lori back then and that he tried to get back with her recently. When Alina searches the truck, she's shocked to see Viorel's body. She reveals that she used to take care of the man who had to use a crutch because he could barely walk. Hearing this, Márta's puzzled about how Viorel walked his way up the mountain. She then confesses to the villager that she was the one who accidentally shot the man, mistaking him for an animal. Alina quickly realizes that someone must have set up Márta, and that person intentionally placed Viorel in their hunting area. Márta then recalls that Lori, who stopped them along the way earlier, already had the local's body on the back of his truck. The lawyer quickly figures out that the guide was the one who brought Viorel to the forest because he knew exactly where to find his body. She then becomes convinced that the man framed them so he could blackmail them and earn a lot of money. After hearing everything, Alina points out that the information only benefited Márta. However, she still worries about her lover, Aaron, whom she assumes has fled. Meanwhile, Andras finally arrives at the guest house to meet István and gives him the 50,000 euros he requested. When Márta and Alina arrive at the village, the woman faces her uncle Marci, lying to him that they saw Lori take Viorel's life. When he asks where Lori is, she reveals that someone else ended his life. Following this, Marci guides Alina forward and shows her Aaron's body, revealing that he was slashed. When she asks who did it to her boyfriend, her uncle's main suspect is Lori. Suddenly, the locals start surrounding Márta, blaming her presence for causing multiple tragedies in the village. But connecting everything, the lawyer thinks that István worked with Lori. She then tells the locals that the two had everything planned. She adds that István threatened her after their celebration earlier but twists the story, lying it's because of money. Márta then asserts that Lori ended Viorel's life and István ended Lori's. Alina then supports her statement, advising the locals to go after István instead of the lawyer. Following this, Márta leaves and returns to the guest house to warn her husband. As she heads upstairs, she holds a weapon in case someone attacks her. Entering the room, she tells László everything, explaining that István set her up because he thought she was betraying him because of the recording. She also asserts her innocence, pointing out that Lori intentionally brought Viorel to the forest. That morning, Andras suggests to István that he should dismiss his lawyer, but the businessman is confident Márta won't betray them because of his threat. He then discusses his plan to use the recording as evidence against Chorgoy. Meanwhile, Márta and László hurriedly leave, passing by Alina on their way. When István notices they're gone, he and Andras drive to find them using his car. However, when one of the tires gets punctured, they run back to the guest house to use his assistant's vehicle. However, upon their return, they're met with enraged locals, blaming István for Lori's demise. When the businessman asserts his innocence, the men only beat him, but István threatens them with his handgun, advising them to blame Márta instead. He and Andras then rush to escape. Soon, they reach the village, driving away from the other locals cornering them. Meanwhile, Alina and Aaron's brother are in the guest house when Berkus suddenly enters with a trash bag in his mouth. Checking what's inside, Alina finds László's bloodied yellow sweater, which convinces her that the lawyer's husband ended Lori's life. She worries for Márta, realizing László's taking her to the hill. Aaron's brother offers to accompany her since he knows exactly where the couple is. In the car, Márta tries to understand how Lori knew their exact location in the forest. Suddenly, she recalls that her husband had heard the animal sound and had guided her to that area. The lawyer then turns to László, thinking he set her up too. When she realizes he's taking her elsewhere, she pleads to fix whatever their issue is. When he doesn't listen to her, she abruptly exits the car to run into the woods. However, László catches her and threatens her with a knife, warning that he'll end her life if she tries to escape again. Meanwhile, the locals chase István and Andras, whose vehicle tumbles off the road and into the river. Despite the accident, the duo survives, prompting the villagers to persist in their pursuit. On the other hand, Alina and the boy arrive at the hill only to find the couple's car empty. As László leads Márta to their final destination, he calls her out for her arrogance, informing her that she went too far for blackmailing Chorgoy with a recording. László reveals that the businessman reached out to him with respect. The husband implies that because he was so disappointed with her attitude, he wanted to teach her a lesson. So he devised a plan to imprison her so she gets to experience being the suspect for once. When Márta asks if Lori's blackmail with the body was part of the plan, László reveals it was the hunting guide's improvisation. He then confesses that he ended Lori's life after catching him packing and trying to run away. Meanwhile, Andras distracts the locals so István can escape and find Márta. However, a villager ends the assistant's life by dropping a heavy rock on his head. As the businessman enters the cave, Marchi surprises him, submerging his head into the river until he meets his demise. Meanwhile, the couple reaches the end of the cliff. There, László criticizes Márta for her ungrateful attitude after he assisted her out of her impoverished life. Hearing this, Márta admits she turned into a monster but asserts that she fell for him because he was a good person. She approaches him and removes the sharp tool in his hand, promising they'll find a way out of their problem together. However, as she embraces him, László takes out his phone. He then shows the lawyer the recording of her and István engaging in a physical moment in the car, which Turgoy sent him. Realizing where his anger is coming from, Márta runs, but her husband catches up and throws her off the cliff. When she manages to hold on to a rock, he grabs a log and attempts to push her off. Márta warns him that she has evidence of everything. If she doesn't return home, her safe box will go to the authorities and he will be apprehended. She also reveals that Lori wasn't improvising. He was working for her. Suddenly, their conversation's interrupted when Alina stabs László in the back, causing him to collapse in pain. She then pulls Márta to safety. When László asks why Márta didn't tell him about Lori working for her, the lawyer confesses she was bluffing. Hearing this, he intentionally rolls over, falling to his demise. Alina then embraces the lawyer as she cries. Meanwhile, the locals burn István and András's body, along with the vehicle. Later, as the villagers mourn the loss of Lori, Viorel, and Aaron, Márta suddenly visits to thank Alina for her help. Afterward, Márta moves to India and becomes a pro bono lawyer. She helps a client named Keisha but encourages her to lie about the number of perpetrators in her testimony to put them in a better position in court.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.